Did he think I wouldn't notice the venom in his smile? The spotlight scorches my skin as Jake leans close, his breath hot against my ear, whispering "Surprise, sweetheart," while sliding divorce papers into my hands in front of 300 guests. I'm Brooke, his wife of 5 years, standing on a stage he built in the glittering ballroom of the Grand Meridian Hotel, surrounded by champagne flutes and faces frozen in shock. My midnight blue dress, chosen because he once said it made my eyes unforgettable, clings to me like a second skin, but it's his betrayal that cuts deeper. He planned this. Every flower, every guest, every humiliating detail, to destroy me publicly while his mistress, Melissa, lurks in the shadows. My hands don't shake as I grip the manila envelope, though they should. Any normal wife would crumble, but I'm not that woman anymore. I've known for months what Jake thought he'd hidden: his lies, his affair, and a family secret that will unravel his entire world. The crowd murmurs below, phones raised, capturing every second of this orchestrated disaster. I smile, not because I'm broken, but because I'm ready. The air feels thick with anticipation, like the moment before a storm breaks. Jake's confident grin falters when I meet his eyes, my voice steady despite the roar of blood in my ears. "You planned this," I say quietly, loud enough for the microphone to catch. He chuckles, the sound making my skin crawl. "Every detail, Brooke. The flowers, the champagne, even that dress. I wanted you to look perfect when I destroyed you." The crowd gasps, a champagne glass shatters against marble, but I don't flinch. 5 years of marriage, and this is how he ends it. With style, with an audience, with impact, as he straightens his bow tie like he's just delivered a Broadway performance. I see Melissa's red hair glinting near the back, her green eyes fixed on Jake with worshipful hunger. She knew this was coming. "How long?" I ask, still clutching the papers. "How long have you been planning this? How long have you been sleeping with her?" His mask slips, just for a second, revealing the petty, cruel man beneath. "Does it matter? You'll sign, and you'll disappear quietly, like the good little wife you've always been." He's wrong. He assumes I'm the same naive woman who married him, blind to his late nights, his business trips, his lies. But I've been building my own plan, sparked by a simple mistake. His blood type, O negative, listed on medical records that didn't match either of his A-positive parents. That discrepancy sent me spiraling down a rabbit hole, funded by Jake's own money, with the help of Marcus Chin, the best private investigator I could hire. Marcus uncovered everything: a forged birth certificate, altered hospital records, and a letter from Jennifer, Jake's mother, confessing her affair with David Patterson 30 years ago. Jake isn't a Mitchell. He has no claim to the family fortune. I reach into my evening bag, fingers brushing the silk-wrap box I placed there hours ago, containing photocopies of Marcus's findings and Jennifer's letter. The crowd watches, breathless, as I step forward. Jake's world is about to implode, and I'm holding the detonator. I move toward the front row where Jennifer sits, her face pale as moonlight. "Jennifer," I say softly, extending the box with a smile that feels like broken glass. "Would you mind opening this for me? I think you'll recognize the contents." Her hands tremble, but she takes it, her eyes wide with dread. Jake's voice cracks behind me. "Brooke, what the hell do you think you're doing?" I don't turn. "Shut up, Jake. For once, let someone else have the spotlight." The crowd leans in, phones recording, as Jennifer unties the blue ribbon with shaking fingers. She knows what's inside, a letter she wrote but never sent, confessing everything. The ballroom is silent except for the faint hum of anticipation. This is it, the moment I've planned for months, the moment Jake learns what real humiliation feels like. I glance at Melissa, her face now ashen, sensing the shift. The stage Jake built for my destruction is about to become his own. Jennifer's fingers tremble like autumn leaves as she unfolds the letter, her face draining of color under the harsh ballroom lights. The yellowed paper crinkles softly, a sound amplified by the silence that has fallen over the 300 guests like a heavy curtain. I watch her closely, my heart pounding not with fear but with the steady thrum of anticipation. This moment has been months in the making, born from a single, accidental discovery that cracked open the facade of our perfect life. It started with Jake's routine physical last March, when he tossed his medical records on the kitchen counter with a casual wave, boasting about his flawless health. I barely glanced at them then, too busy stirring the pasta sauce. But later that evening, as he snored beside me, something caught my eye. Blood type O negative. Both his parents were A positive. I remembered from family medical histories we'd shared during our engagement. Basic genetics screamed impossibility, but I pushed it down, telling myself it was a clerical error, nothing more. Yet doubt lingered, gnawing at the edges of my trust like a persistent shadow. Jake had been distant for months, his late nights at the office stretching longer, his touches growing mechanical. I found lipstick on his collar once, a shade of red I never wore, but he laughed it off as a client's hug gone wrong. Then came the whispers from mutual friends, vague hints about Melissa Cartwright, his marketing director with her flame-red hair and ambitious smile. I confronted him once, but he turned it around, accusing me of paranoia, of not supporting his career. That's when the blood type discrepancy resurfaced in my mind, not as a mistake, but as a thread to pull. If Jake could lie about something as intimate as an affair, what else was he hiding? I hired Marcus Chin the next week, using funds from our joint account. Jake's money fueling the investigation that would dismantle him. The irony tasted sweet even then. Marcus was discreet, a shadow in a world of secrets, and he didn't blink when I explained my suspicions. Family trees have rotten roots sometimes, he said, his voice gravely over coffee in a downtown shop. He started with the basics, hospital records from Jake's birth in 1993. What he found tilted my world sideways. An original blood test showing O negative, but the official certificate altered to match Robert's A positive. Digging deeper, Marcus uncovered payments to Dr. Harrison, the delivering physician and David's cousin, $50,000 from Jennifer's inheritance, funneled through anonymous accounts. Jennifer's affair with David Patterson wasn't a fleeting mistake. It spanned 3 lonely months while Robert traveled for business. She felt invisible, she later confessed in fragments during our visits. And David made her feel seen. When pregnancy came, panic set in. She convinced herself the timing aligned with Robert's brief weekend home, but the blood tests proved otherwise. Dr. Harrison, burdened by family loyalty to David, agreed to falsify the records for the bribe, backdating errors to make it seem clerical. Marcus tracked down the retired nurse who assisted, her memory sharp despite the years. Mrs. Mitchell begged us to keep quiet, said it was for the baby's future. The forged birth certificate followed, sealing Jake into a life that wasn't his. But the real bombshell was the letter. Marcus found it in Jennifer's safety deposit box, registered under her maiden name, opened the week Jake was born. She'd written it 5 years ago, the night before our wedding, intending to confess to Robert but chickening out after meeting me. In her words, I was the kind one, the genuine soul amid the chaos, and it made her question everything. The affair's details poured out. Winter nights with David, the guilt that haunted her, the decision to send him away to California when Jake was 5, cutting ties to bury the truth. I protected my reputation, not my son, she admitted in looping script. Marcus also secured DNA evidence from distant relatives, confirming David as the father, no Mitchell blood in Jake's veins. The family fortune, tied to Robert's lineage through the 1923 trust, was out of reach. Jake's identity, his arrogance built on stolen privilege, was a house of cards. I sat with the file for days, the weight of it pressing on my chest, fueling a resolve I didn't know I had. As Jennifer begins to read now, her voice cracking over the microphone, the ballroom holds its breath. My dearest Robert, she whispers, the words echoing like a distant thunder. I can no longer carry this burden alone. Jake stiffens beside me, his face twisting in confusion. Mother, stop this. But she can't. The dam is breaking. She details the loneliness of 1993, Robert's absences, David's return from Chicago making her feel alive. I made a choice that haunts me every day. The name David hits Jake like a slap. His uncle, the man who'd vanished from family stories. Guests shift uncomfortably, whispers rippling. Affair, pregnancy, lies. Jennifer's tears fall freely as she reads on. The discovery, the bribe to Dr. Harrison, the falsified tests. You weren't Robert's son, she chokes out, looking at Jake. He staggers back, his world fracturing. My entire life, it's all a lie? I feel a pang, not pity, but the echo of my own betrayal. Months ago, after Marcus's report, I deepened my bond with Jennifer, visiting her weekly, bringing tea, listening to her ramble about the past. She was frail since Robert's death, lonely in that echoing mansion. David always said Jake had his eyes, she slipped once, sorting photos. I nodded, piecing it together, earning her trust. During her pneumonia scare, when Jake couldn't be bothered to visit, too entangled with Melissa, she grabbed my wrist on pain meds. "You're the daughter I should have had." That sealed it. Jake wanted to humiliate me publicly. I'd expose him the same way. Now, as Jennifer finishes, praising my kindness over Jake's cruelty, the crowd erupts in murmurs. "Illegitimate," someone hisses. Jake's face is ashen, his bow tie askew. Melissa edges toward the exit, her dream of being the next Mrs. Mitchell shattering. "This is just the beginning of his fall, and I've orchestrated every note." Jennifer's voice wavers as she continues reading, the microphone amplifying every hitch in her breath, every rustle of the aged paper in her grip. The ballroom, once alive with the clink of glasses and murmured conversations, now feels like a vacuum, sucking in sound and holding it captive. Guests lean forward in their seats, some standing on tiptoe for a better view, their faces a mosaic of shock, curiosity, and dawning horror. I stand a few feet away, my arms crossed lightly over my chest, the silk of my dress whispering against my skin with each subtle shift. This is the culmination of careful planning, a symphony where every note strikes at the heart of Jake's illusions. The box, now open on Jennifer's lap, spills its secrets like poison from a vial. Photocopies of the forged documents, the DNA results Marcus procured through discreet channels, and that damning letter, her handwriting as elegant as it is condemning. She pauses, her eyes flicking to me, a silent plea mixed with resignation. "Please, Brooke," she murmurs, barely audible. "Not like this. Not in front of everyone." But it's too late for mercy. Jake sealed that fate when he chose this stage for his cruelty. "Like what?" Jake snaps, jumping down from the platform, his polished shoes thudding against the marble floor as he strides toward us. His face is flushed, a vein pulsing at his temple, the golden boy unraveling thread by thread. "What is this melodrama, Mother? What's in that letter?" Jennifer's mouth opens and closes, tears glistening on her cheeks, but I step in, my voice calm and carrying. "No game, Jake. Just truth, something you've never been fond of." I nod to her, gentle but firm. "Read it, Jennifer. Out loud. Let everyone hear what you wrote to your husband all those years ago." The crowd presses closer, a sea of designer gowns and tuxedos, rustling like dry leaves in wind. Someone in the back coughs nervously, but otherwise, it's pin-drop silent. Jennifer steels herself, her shoulders squaring as if drawing strength from the very secret that's crushed her for decades. "The winter of 1993 was the loneliest of my life," she reads, her words gaining strength. "You were traveling constantly for work, and I felt invisible in my own home. When David returned from Chicago, when he looked at me like I mattered, I made a choice that haunts me every day." The name David ripples through the room like a stone dropped in still water. Jake goes rigid, his hands clenching at his sides. "You had an affair," he states flatly, his lawyer's mind racing ahead, connecting dots he wishes he could erase. Jennifer nods, tears streaming now unheeded. "For 3 months. 3 months of feeling alive again, of feeling wanted. And then I discovered I was pregnant." A collective gasp sweeps the ballroom, phones tilting higher to capture the implosion. I watch Jake's face cycle through denial to rage, his world tilting as mine did months ago when Marcus laid out the evidence in neat folders. The DNA test he'd obtained, samples from David's distant cousin, cross-referenced with Jake's medical scraps, proved it beyond doubt. No Mitchell genes, only Patterson's shadow. Jennifer presses on, her voice cracking on the details. The terror of the timing, convincing herself it could be Robert's, but the blood tests shattering that illusion. "Dr. Harrison, he was David's cousin. He knew about the affair. When you were born, when he ran the tests." She swallows hard. "He came to me privately, told me the results proved you weren't Robert's son." Jake staggers as if punched, his breath coming in sharp bursts. "So you bribed him," I interject softly, filling in the gaps from Marcus's report, my words measured for maximum impact. "You paid him to falsify the records." Jennifer nods miserably, the confession pouring out. $50,000, money from my grandmother. He changed the blood type documentation, backdated records, made it look like a clerical error. No one would question it. The guests murmur louder now, fragments of scandal floating up. Bribe? Illegitimate? The Mitchell fortune. I glance at Melissa, her green eyes wide with panic, her hand clutching her purse like a lifeline. She thought she was hitching her star to an heir. Now she's witnessing the unmasking of a fraud. Jake turns to me, desperation etching lines on his face. Brooke, this can't be real. She's confused. Memory issues, the doctor said. But his voice lacks conviction, the facade cracking under the weight of truth. Jennifer looks up, her eyes locking on Jake's for the first time since opening the box. I thought I was protecting you, she whispers, the microphone catching every nuance. Giving you the life you deserved, the Mitchell name, the standing, the security. How could I take that from an innocent child? Jake explodes then, his composure shattering. By lying to everyone. To Dad, to me. The raw pain in his voice echoes my own from discovering his affair. Texts on his phone, late-night calls he dismissed as work. But where I channeled hurt into action, he's flailing. Jennifer isn't done. She reads the final part, her voice steadying with catharsis. I wrote this 5 years ago, the night before your wedding. I was going to tell Robert everything, but then I met Brooke. Jake's head snaps toward me, confusion mingling with anger. She was so kind that day, Jennifer continues, warmth creeping in. Amid the chaos, she noticed I was overwhelmed, brought me tea, truly listened. Over these years, she's been the daughter I never had, calling weekly, visiting during my surgery, remembering my birthday when you forgot. Jake's face twists ugly. So what if she was nice? That doesn't change what you did. But Jennifer rises, the letter fluttering to the floor, her voice rising to fill the space. No, but it changes what I should have done. Watching her kindness, her strength, I realized you, Jacob, are nothing like the man who raised you. Selfish, cruel, petty, you inherited your biological father's worst traits, none of Robert's best. The words hang like smoke, the crowd absorbing the blow. I smile inwardly, the silk box's contents having done their work. This isn't just revenge, it's revelation, stripping away the lies that propped up Jake's life. As the murmurs swell into a buzz, I feel the shift, the audience turning from spectators to judges, their stares heavy on Jake. Melissa slips further into the shadows, her exit imminent. The evidence is out, the truth surfacing like a long-buried artifact, and Jake's empire of illusions is crumbling to dust before my eyes. The silence that follows Jennifer's declaration stretches for exactly 3 seconds, a fragile bubble before it bursts into chaos. The ballroom erupts not with applause or screams, but with that dangerous hum of scandal igniting, low whispers spreading like wildfire from group to group, faces transforming as the weight of what they've witnessed sinks in. Did she just say he's not his real father? Someone mutters nearby, their voice carrying in the hush. 30 years of lies, illegitimate heir. The words bounce off the marble columns, amplified by the open mouths and raised eyebrows around me. I stand still, my evening bag clutched lightly, watching Jake's face drain of color, his posture crumbling like wet sand. He's always prided himself on control, on being the untouchable Mitchell scion, but now he's exposed, raw and vulnerable under the chandelier's unforgiving glow. Jennifer slumps back into her chair, the letter trembling in her hands, but there's a flicker in her eyes. Relief, perhaps, after decades of carrying this alone. The microphone, still pinned to her lapel from Jake's insistence on speeches, catches her ragged breaths, broadcasting her exhaustion to everyone. Jake laughs then, a bitter, broken sound that echoes hollowly. More? What else could there possibly be? He turns to the crowd, arms outstretched as if appealing to them, but their stares are cold, judgmental. Margaret Whitmore, who kissed my cheek warmly an hour ago, now grips her champagne flute so tightly her knuckles whiten, her lipstick smudged on the rim like blood. This can't be real, she whispers to her husband, but loud enough for nearby guests to nod in agreement. The Mitchells are pillars of this community, founding members of the country club. Another voice snaps back, sharp and unforgiving. Apparently not. Apparently they've been living a complete fraud. Jake flinches at that, his eyes darting wildly, seeking allies in the sea of faces that once fawned over him. His fraternity brothers from Yale, the ones who stood at our wedding, back away subtly, their loyalty evaporating like morning mist. One mutters, "We should go," and the microphone picks it up, projecting his betrayal across the room. This is going to be all over social media in an hour. Already is, his friend replies, holding up a phone. Someone streaming live, 3,000 viewers and climbing. I watch it all unfold with a detached calm, the same composure that carried me through discovering Jake's affair 8 months ago. It wasn't just the lipstick or the texts, it was the way he looked at Melissa during company events, a hunger he never hid well. Now she stands frozen near the back, her emerald dress suddenly too bright, too conspicuous, like she's overdressed for a funeral. Her face has gone white, lips bitten raw, as the implications hit her. The fortune she eyed doesn't exist, the status a mirage. Her phone buzzes in her hand, probably friends or family reacting to the stream, but she silences it, eyes locked on Jake with a mix of pity and self-preservation. He spots her then, desperation flashing across his features like a drowning man seeing shore. "Melissa," he calls, his voice cracking, arm half raised. She pauses at the doorway, shoulders tense, but doesn't turn. The entire crowd follows his gaze, 300 pairs of eyes landing on the mistress now unmasked. She slips out without a word, leaving him adrift. The exodus begins in earnest. Richard Blackstone, Jake's biggest client, heads for the exit with his wife, their heels clicking urgently. "Jake," he booms over his shoulder, "we'll need to discuss our contract terms Monday morning." The subtext is clear. The $2 million account is gone. The Hendersons follow, then the Caruthers, Jake's golf buddies, murmuring excuses about early mornings. His best man, Marcus Webb, catches his eye and shakes his head slowly, 30 years of friendship severed in a gesture. Even the Prestons, neighbors who taught Jake to ride a bike, gather their coats with grim efficiency, avoiding his pleading stare. Within 15 minutes, the ballroom has thinned by 2/3, the remaining guests huddled in clusters, not out of support, but morbid curiosity, waiting to see how low he can fall. The air smells of spilled champagne and wilted flowers, the party's glamour stripped away like old wallpaper. Through it all, I remain rooted, sipping flat champagne that tastes like victory. I don't gloat or speak. I simply observe the man who tried to break me, discover true breakage. Mrs. Lighton approaches then, her elderly hand gentle on my arm. "Dear, are you all right?" she asks, concern creasing her face. She's known me since childhood, long before I became a Mitchell. My smile is genuine. "I'm perfect, Mrs. Lighton. Thank you." She nods, squeezes my hand and leaves, her quiet solidarity a balm. That's when I know it's time. I've witnessed enough. The collapse of his social fortress, the fleeing of his sycophants. I set down my glass, pick up my bag, and walk toward the exit, head high, without a backward glance. Jake's voice echoes behind me, ragged. "Brooke, wait, Brooke!" But I don't. He wanted an audience for our end. Now he has one for his. Outside, under the hotel's crystal canopy, the cool night air rushes over me like freedom. The valet brings my car, and I slide in, the engine purring softly as I pull away. Streetlights cast golden pools on the asphalt, the city hushed as if respecting my triumph. My phone buzzes with notifications, texts, calls, social alerts, but I silence it, tucking it away. Tonight is mine. At home, my home now, the Tudor mansion looms dark, its gardens manicured but empty. I kick off my heels in the foyer, pad barefoot to the kitchen, and pour 3 fingers of Macallan 25 from Jake's locked cabinet. The whiskey burns beautifully as I settle into the leather chair overlooking the garden, security lights painting everything in stark contrasts. My phone rings, Jake's tone. I let it voicemail, but by the 4th call, curiosity wins. I answer silently. "Brooke, thank God," he rasps, desperate. "Where are you? We need to talk." "This is insane. You can't believe what Mother said. She's having memory issues, stress delusions." I sip slowly. "Jake, stop." The question seems to throw him off balance, his ragged breathing stuttering through the phone line for a moment. "What?" "I'm still at the hotel, in the parking garage. Everyone's gone, Brooke, everyone. Even the staff won't look at me." I take another slow sip of the whiskey, letting the burn settle in my throat as I picture him there, huddled in his luxury car amid the concrete echoes, the tuxedo that cost a fortune now wrinkled and irrelevant. "Good," I say again, the word hanging between us like a verdict. He sputters, incredulous. "Good? What do you mean, good? My entire life just imploded on live television. Do you have any idea what this means, for me, for my career, for—" His voice trails off and I finish it softly. "For your inheritance." The silence stretches, thick and accusing, before he whispers, You knew before tonight." "I've known for months, Jake. About David Patterson, about the falsified medical records, about Dr. Harrison taking $50,000 to hide the truth." About everything. He exhales sharply, probably replaying that joke he made back in March after his physical, laughing about being adopted because the blood types didn't match. If only he'd realized how close he was to the mark. So you hired someone, he says, his tone flat, defeated. You investigated my family. No, I investigated my husband. Because when someone you love starts acting like a stranger, you either accept the lies or dig for the truth. I chose truth. And this was your revenge, destroying me in public. I stand and walk to the window, gazing out at the garden's shadows dancing under the security lights. No, Jake, this was justice. You wanted to humiliate me in front of everyone we knew. You wanted an audience for my destruction, so I gave you an audience for yours. But you could have told me privately. We could have handled this quietly, like civilized people. My laugh comes sharp, like shattered crystal. Civilized? Like serving your wife divorce papers at your anniversary party? Like sleeping with your employee for 8 months while lying to my face every day? Like planning to take half of everything I've worked for while you run off with a woman barely older than your college diplomas? He doesn't answer right away, can't, the weight of his choices pressing down. The difference between us, Jake, is that I only destroyed what was already fake. Your name, your inheritance, your reputation, none of it was ever real. You've been living someone else's life for 30 years. Brooke, please, he begs, his voice cracking smaller, younger. I made mistakes, but you didn't make mistakes. You made choices. Every lie, every betrayal, every cruel decision, you chose all of it. Through the line, I hear distant car doors slamming, engines revving. The last stragglers fleeing the scene, leaving him utterly alone. He starts rambling then, the words tumbling out in a desperate bid to make me see his side. But it's really a recounting of the crowd's betrayal, each detail painting the picture of his rapid fall. You should have seen them, Brooke. After Mother finished reading, the whispers started everywhere. Margaret Whitmore, she stared at me like I was some intruder in her world. And Richard Blackstone? He just walked out, said we'd talk contracts Monday, but I know what that means. The account's gone, $2 million down the drain. I lean against the cool glass, the night air seeping through, chilling my skin as he continues, his panic fueling the litany. My frat brothers, they backed away like I was toxic. One said it was already streaming live, thousands watching. And Melissa. God, Melissa called my name, but she didn't even turn back, just vanished through the door. Everyone followed, the Hendersons muttering excuses, the Carruthers not even bothering. Marcus Webb, my best man, shook his head and left without a word. 30 years, gone in a gesture. The Prestons, who were like grandparents to me, Mrs. Preston taught me to bike, remember? They wouldn't meet my eyes, just gathered their things and slipped out. The ballroom emptied so fast, like rats from a sinking ship. 2/3 gone in minutes, the rest staying to gawk, whispering fraud and illegitimate. My phone's blowing up now, clients pulling out, partners texting about emergency meetings. The country club membership, probably revoked by morning. Everything I built, every connection, dissolved in one night. His voice breaks on the last word, the shock still fresh, as if reliving it might change the outcome. I close my eyes, the whiskey glass warming in my hand, and let him pour it out. It's not pity stirring in me, but a quiet acknowledgement. This is the shocking unraveling I'd anticipated, the crowd's judgment manifesting in their swift abandonment. Those people who'd orbited Jake for his supposed pedigree, his stolen shine, now scattering to protect their own reputations. Association with scandal is poison in their world, and Jake's become the epicenter. They remember, he mutters, echoing what he'd later say at the club, according to Sarah. They all remember, and they'll talk forever. But the truth is, scandals fade. It's the personal void that lingers. He chokes back a sob. My mother? You found that letter in her things. You violated her privacy, stole personal documents. I was bringing her fresh clothes during the pneumonia scare in April. You were too busy with Melissa to visit your own mother. The letter fell out of a book. I didn't steal it, Jake. I found it. And after 5 years of watching you claim credit for what Robert built, treating people like disposable rungs on your ladder, I decided the truth needed air. So you played God with my life. No, I stopped playing victim in my own marriage. The silence drags again, broken by his uneven breaths and the faint hum of traffic beyond his garage hideout. He's alone there, the golden boy reduced to a shadow, his professional ties severed, social bridges burned. Clients like Blackstone withdrawing, associates ghosting, even the valet probably averting eyes earlier. It's the dissolution I'd foreseen when Marcus handed me the file, the fortune untouchable, the name tainted, the network crumbling. What happens now, he asks finally, small and lost. Now you figure out who you really are. Not Robert Mitchell's son, not the heir to a fortune you never earned, not my husband. Whoever that is. And us. There is no us, Jake. There hasn't been for a long time. Tonight just made it official. I hear him shift, perhaps slumping against the steering wheel, the reality settling like dust after a storm. I'm filing the papers tomorrow, I add gently. Under my maiden name, Carter. The one you said sounded too common. Brooke, goodbye, Jake. I end the call, turn off the phone and let the quiet of the house envelop me, the echoes of the crowd's rejection fading into his solitary night. The first night I slept alone in our bed, I stared at the ceiling until dawn, the whiskey's warmth fading into a quiet ache as I let myself remember how it all began. Not the marriage with its fairy tale wedding and whispered promises, not the slow creep of lies that eroded us, but the precise moment I stopped being the trusting wife and started seeing the cracks. It was a Tuesday in March, rain pattering against the windows like impatient fingers, when Jake came home from his annual physical, waving the lab results like a trophy. Clean bill of health, he announced, dropping the paperwork on the kitchen counter before disappearing into the shower, his voice echoing with that self-satisfied tone he reserved for his victories. I was midway through dinner prep, tasting the pasta sauce, when my eyes snagged on those two words, blood type O negative. It didn't register at first, just a minor detail amid the cholesterol levels and blood pressure readings, but as the evening wore on, it nagged at me. Both his parents were A-positive. I knew from the family health discussions we'd had early in our dating days, when everything felt transparent and safe. That night, as Jake snored beside me, his arm slung possessively over my waist, I slipped out of bed and pulled the wedding album from the shelf in the study. Page after page of polished smiles and champagne toasts, but I paused at one photo. Jake flanked by Robert and Jennifer at the reception, all three laughing at some forgotten joke. Robert's eyes were hazel with golden flecks. Jennifer's a deep brown that bordered on black in low light. Jake's bright emerald green, a shade that always drew compliments, but now struck me as out of place. Two brown-eyed parents producing green eyes was possible with recessive genes, but unlikely. Add the blood type mismatch and the odds plummeted to near zero. People adopted all the time, I reasoned. Families kept secrets for good reasons. Maybe it was nothing, a simple explanation tucked away out of politeness. But Jake had always worn his Mitchell heritage like a crown, boasting about the bloodline that traced back to industrial pioneers, the genetic legacy of success. If he were adopted, he'd know, and he'd never hinted at it. The questions festered for weeks, turning casual glances at family photos into scrutiny sessions with a magnifying glass, searching for resemblances that suddenly seemed forced. Jake had Jennifer's stubborn chin, sure, but height like Robert's was common enough. It felt ridiculous, inventing mysteries where none existed, but the doubt had taken root. Then came the photograph that shattered my denial. I was clearing out Robert's old desk in the study, a task Jennifer had avoided since his death 2 years prior, when I found a manila folder wedged behind tax documents from the 90s. Inside, childhood snapshots of Jake, at birthday parties, school plays, summer camps. One stopped me cold. Jake at 8, grinning beside a tall man with dark hair and those same unmistakable emerald eyes. The man's hand rested on Jake's shoulder with easy affection, their smiles mirroring each other. On the back, in faded ink, Jake and Uncle David, Christmas 1995. Uncle David, David Patterson, Robert's former business partner, the one Jennifer tensed at the mention of, changing the subject with practiced ease. He'd moved to California abruptly when Jake was 5, cutting all family ties without explanation. I sat there for hours, the house silent around me, my world shifting as pieces clicked into place. This wasn't coincidence. It was a hidden history begging to be unearthed. The next Monday, I met Marcus Chin in a nondescript coffee shop downtown, recommended by my friend Sarah, a divorce lawyer who'd handled messy cases before. I told her it was for background checks on potential staff, but Marcus saw through the pretense without comment. I need you to investigate my husband's parentage, I said, sliding him the photo and blood work copies. Specifically, if Robert Mitchell was his biological father. He nodded, professional to his core. Medical inconsistencies? Blood type issues? Old photos raising flags? Exactly. And keep it confidential. If word gets back, I'll know the source. Marcus took 6 weeks, his updates sparse but thorough, unraveling 30 years of deception with methodical precision. He started with birth records, the original tests showing O negative, altered post-delivery to match Robert's. Then the payment trail, $50,000 to Dr. Harrison, traced through Jennifer's inheritance accounts. The nurse's testimony came next, retired but memory intact. Jennifer's pleas for silence, for the baby's sake. David Patterson surfaced in Sacramento, living under his mother's maiden name, his relocation funded by a hush money transfer from Jennifer. The DNA was irrefutable, samples cross-referenced confirming no Mitchell lineage. But the letter was the crown jewel, hidden in a safety deposit box under Jennifer's maiden name. Marcus's bank contacts got him access. Inside, documents from Jake's birth week, including her confession, penned 5 years ago. The affair wasn't brief weakness but a 3-month blaze of passion. Jennifer in love with David, planning to leave Robert until pregnancy forced her hand. She panicked, bribed Harrison, convinced David to vanish. Keeping the secret wasn't for Jake, she wrote, but for my reputation, my marriage, my place in society. Reading it felt like peering into a fractured soul, the guilt woven through every line. Marcus delivered the file on a rainy Thursday, his final check signed with steady hands. "What now?" he asked. "I don't know yet," I lied, but I did. I'd wait, gather more, turn the knife slowly. Over the following months, I wove myself deeper into Jennifer's life, visits escalating from monthly to weekly, tea in hand as I listened to her reminisce. She was isolated since Robert's passing, the mansion too big for one. I organized her medications, drove her to appointments, sat bedside during her April pneumonia bout when Jake claimed work conflicts, really Melissa distractions. On pain meds, she confided fragments. David always said Jake had his eyes. Worried people would notice. When? I probed gently. When Jake was 5, right after Robert promoted him. The timing was too perfect. She was testing me, gauging trust. The breakthrough came one evening, helping her into pajamas. She gripped my wrist. He was never supposed to know. Promised David we'd take it to the grave. But you, Brooke, you're the daughter I should have raised, not the son I lied for. Driving home, resolve hardened. Jake's public humiliation deserved a mirror. I let him plan the party, nodding at invitations, venue, even his tux, all while scripting my reveal. The box, the timing, Jennifer's forced confession. He built the stage for my fall. I ensured it was his. 2 months later, I found myself knee-deep in a nameless lake, the cool water lapping at my skin as minnows darted between my bare toes, my favorite mug of coffee cooling in my hand under the morning sun. The cottage I'd rented perched 50 yards back, its weathered cedar shingles and slamming screen door, a far cry from the opulent life I'd left behind. 1 bedroom, a tiny kitchen, a porch facing east for sunrises over water that felt wild and unclaimed. This was the antithesis of everything Jake represented. No manicured lawns, no imported stone facades, just simple solitude that wrapped around me like a well-worn blanket. I'd stumbled upon this place on an aimless drive in late September, right after signing the final divorce papers, the ink still fresh on my reclaimed name, Brooke Carter. The realtor, Ruth, in her muddy boots, had eyed me curiously but asked no questions about my need for remoteness. Last tenant was a writer, she'd said, unlocking the door to reveal pine walls and a stone fireplace. Said the quiet cleared her head. Some find it too much, though. Perfect, I'd replied, signing on the spot. That first morning, the absence of noise disoriented me. No city hum, no Jake's early calls buzzing like angry bees, just birdsong and wind-rustling pines. I sat on the porch in pajamas, sipping coffee that tasted honest, not the bitter blend Jake insisted on. And let tears come, not from loss, but release. The lavender plants arrived soon after, delivered by a local teen who helped dig holes in the sandy soil. They like good drainage, he explained, packing earth around the roots. And they'll return yearly if you don't overfuss. I adopted that mantra. Don't overfuss. My phone stayed mostly silent now, save for Sarah's occasional texts updating the fallout. Jake had called 7 times in the first month, voicemails ranging from please to that eerie 30-second breathing one before I blocked him. Sarah's messages sketched his unraveling. Resigned from the firm after partners forced him out, a downtown apartment leased under David Patterson's name. Embracing the truth or hiding from it. Melissa filed a restraining order. He'd loitered outside her office for weeks, just watching, not approaching. The most startling update: Jennifer changed her will. Everything to the Pediatric Cancer Foundation and the Brooke Carter Scholarship Fund. Jake got nothing, not even photos. A scholarship in my name, her final apology for the web of lies that snared me too. The legal wrap-up was brutal efficiency. Jake's birth certificate amended, father listed as unknown. The 1923 Mitchell Trust intact but heirless. Robert's $47 million estate distributed per Jennifer's revisions. Jake Patterson Mitchell, or whatever hyphenate he'd petitioned for, had no claim. But money wasn't the killer. It was the ensuing silence. Sarah mentioned during a call that Jake obsessed over imagined whispers, in coffee shops, gyms, believing eyes followed him. But honestly, people moved on, she said. That senator's affair, the CEO scandal, your story got buried in the cycle. He showed up at the country club once, nursing a drink for hours, muttering, "They remember," to anyone who asked. Margaret Whitmore's daughter reported no one noticed him. He was invisible now, the ultimate irony for a man who craved spotlights. I rarely dwelled on him, my days finding a natural rhythm far from social calendars and facades. Waking with the sun, walking lakeside trails, reading novels, unconcerned with self-betterment or networking. Afternoons in the vegetable garden I'd started. Tomatoes, herbs, beans thriving despite my novice hands. The labor felt grounding, dirt under nails, a badge of authenticity missing from charity galas. Evenings on the porch swing Ruth installed after I admired one in town, watching sky hues shift over the water while grilling simple meals. Lake fish, garden veggies, bakery bread from 15 miles away. I kept 3 ties from before: Sarah, Mrs. Lighton, and Carmen, Jennifer's hospice nurse who'd checked on me post-funeral. The rest faded naturally. We'd been ornaments in each other's lives, not true friends. Carmen visited occasionally, sharing outsider glimpses. That red-haired girl, Melissa? Back in Ohio, social accounts gone. Good for her, I'd said sincerely. She'd been Jake's unwitting pawn, learning hard lessons in the debris. Your ex asks about you, Carmen added carefully. Where you went, how you're faring. Nothing menacing, just puzzled, like he can't grasp your vanishing. I smiled then. He never grasped who I was to begin with. The cottage shunned digital echoes. No Instagram filters, no check-ins. I deleted accounts the day I arrived, severing those chains of curated perfection. Jake wouldn't comprehend this fulfillment in obscurity. His self was external, validated by envy and recognition. My silence stung him more than spectacle could. If the story hooked you with its revenge twist, imagine the quiet power in walking away entirely. My favorite moment, handing Jennifer that box, watching secrets unfold. Yet even here, reflections pulled me back to the origins, deepening as I tended the garden or stared at starlit skies. The suspicion seed wasn't just the blood type. It was layered, like peeling an onion to tears. After spotting the green eyes mismatch in photos, I delved into old albums Jennifer loaned during visits, noticing David's recurring presence in early snapshots. Always near Jake. Sharing laughs Robert rarely captured. One image, David teaching Jake to fish, their postures identical, a bond beyond uncle. Jennifer's slips grew during our tease. David had such a way with children, she'd muse, eyes distant. I probed gently, building trust amid her loneliness. Marcus's digs revealed more, David's abrupt move tied to Jennifer's ultimatum, a severance payment masking guilt. He lived modestly now, no contact, but his DNA trail confirmed everything. Planning deepened post-letter discovery. I photocopied discreetly, tested Jennifer's resolve with hypotheticals about truth's weight. Secrets eat at you, she'd admit, unknowingly arming me. I added contingencies, backup evidence in my bag, timing the reveal post-Jake's papers for maximum irony. New layers emerged. Jake's subtle digs at my common roots, now poetic justice. The counterattack wasn't rushed. It simmered, refined in quiet moments, ensuring his stage became his undoing. As the seasons shifted around the lake, turning summer's green haze to autumn's fiery palette, I found myself settling deeper into a rhythm that felt like my own for the first time in years. The cottage became more than a hideaway. It was a canvas for reinvention, where mornings stretched lazy with fog rolling off the water and evenings whispered secrets through the pines. I'd expanded the garden, adding rows of carrots and squash that pushed through the soil with stubborn determination, mirroring my own quiet persistence. Ruth stopped by occasionally with supplies from town. Fresh bread, a bundle of yarn for the knitting I'd taken up on whim, her muddy boots leaving prints on the porch that I never minded. "You're blooming out here," she'd say with a nod, not prying into the past that had driven me to this edge of the world. And she was right. The isolation wasn't empty, but full, brimming with small discoveries like the way sunlight filtered through leaves, or how a single heron's cry could echo across the stillness. My old life felt like a distant novel I'd set aside, its characters fading into archetypes: the betrayer, the secret keeper, the collateral souls caught in the crossfire. Sarah's updates grew sporadic, but each one painted Jake's descent with clinical detachment. He'd sold the downtown apartment after failing to keep up payments, drifting to a smaller rental on the city's outskirts, his attempts at freelance law work sputtering amid whispers of his scandal. Partners who'd once clapped his back now dodged calls, clients citing conflicts that everyone knew stemmed from the viral footage of that night. The country club had indeed revoked his membership, a form letter citing conduct unbecoming, and social invites dried up like summer streams. Carmen shared during a visit that he'd been spotted at Jennifer's grave once, standing motionless for hours, perhaps grappling with the will's exclusion or the hyphenated name he now carried awkwardly, like ill-fitting clothes. Melissa, back in Ohio, had reinvented herself too, a new job in marketing for a local firm, her social profiles scrubbed clean, lessons learned in the harsh light of public exposure. But these fragments didn't haunt me. They were echoes, reminders of a chapter closed. I'd added walks along forgotten trails where wild berries stained my fingers and deer watched from the underbrush with wary curiosity. Reading consumed afternoons, novels of quiet resilience, biographies of women who'd rebuilt from ashes, pages turning slowly as coffee steamed beside me. The scholarship fund in my name had launched, per Jennifer's bequest, aiding young women in STEM fields, a legacy that felt more tangible than any inheritance Jake chased. Applications trickled in via email, stories of ambition that mirrored my younger self, before marriage dulled the edges. I volunteered remotely, reviewing submissions, offering advice in letters that carried the scent of pine when posted. Evenings often ended with the grill's sizzle, simple meals savored on the porch as stars pricked the sky, no need for company beyond the lake's gentle lap. New elements wove in unexpectedly. A stray cat that adopted the cottage, curling by the fireplace with purring contentment, or the local book club Ruth invited me to, where discussions flowed without pretense or power plays. I learned to fish from a neighbor down the shore, his weathered hands guiding the line, teaching patience in the pull and release. These weren't grand adventures, but threads strengthening the fabric of my days, far from the performative existence Jake thrived on. His breakdown, Sarah noted, had plateaued into numb routine. He attended therapy sporadically, worked odd consulting gigs, but the fire that drove him was extinguished, replaced by a hollow gaze in photos leaked online. He still asked after me through mutuals, puzzled by my erasure, unable to fathom contentment without audience. That incomprehension was his final punishment, more potent than any spectacle. Reflecting on it all, as winter's first frost etched patterns on the windows, I realized the revenge wasn't the party's climax but this aftermath, the deliberate choice to thrive unseen. Jake's world had been external, built on applause and acquisition. Mine now rooted inward, in soil and silence and self. The silk box, the confessions, the crowd's exodus, they were catalysts, not the core. Freedom tasted like lake air, sharp and clean, untainted by lies. If this tale of turning tables resonated, perhaps it's because justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet reclaiming of one's story. My profound sense of freedom bloomed here, in anonymity, where I was simply Brooke, whole and unscripted. In the gentle hush of the cottage, As snow began to dust the lake's edge like powdered sugar on forgotten pastries, I allowed the pace of my thoughts to slow, each memory unfolding with the softness of turning pages in a well-loved book. The whirlwind of that anniversary night, with its sharp revelations and crumbling facades, seemed now like a distant storm, its thunder muted by time and distance. I wrapped myself in a knitted blanket, the yarn's texture a reminder of hands that had learned to create rather than merely endure, and watched the flames dance in the stone fireplace, their warmth seeping into bones once chilled by betrayal. Jake's path, from what fragments reached me, had veered into shadowed valleys, his once vibrant stride reduced to tentative steps through a life stripped bare. Yet I harbored no lingering sharpness toward him. The edges of anger had softened, worn smooth by the steady current of my new existence. Jennifer's legacy through the scholarship bloomed in young minds pursuing dreams unhindered, a quiet amends that echoed her final gratitude. Melissa, too, had found her footing elsewhere, her story a parallel thread of resilience woven from the same chaotic cloth. Here, amid the pine-scented air and the lake's murmuring lullaby, I discovered that true renewal wasn't in grand gestures, but in the everyday grace of being present, tending lavender that promised to return come spring, sipping tea as dawn painted the water in pastels, embracing solitude not as absence but as abundance. The world beyond faded to a whisper, its demands no longer binding, leaving space for a self I'd long neglected to flourish. And in that whisper, I found peace, a soft exhalation of release, carrying me forward on wings of quiet strength.